Everyone's good enough to do something. You just have to make up your mind to do it and then take the action. And when, you continuously take that action and you're consistent, that's where the confidence builds.
Well, hey, and welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. And I'm so delighted to introduce you to my friend, Carlos Villarreal. He is a fellow certified high performance coach, and he's a business growth partner who helps entrepreneurs and business owners cut through overwhelm, gain clarity, and focus on intentional growth. With over 16 years as a business consultant, he's had mentorship from leaders such as Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, and our mutual mentor Brendan Burchard. Carlos is passionate about helping leaders build their confidence, master their routines, and perform at their highest level. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Amanda, so glad to be here. I'm so excited to be on the Amanda Kaufman Show. This is exciting.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really glad that you're here. And you've been in business for quite some time. You've learned from some really heavy hitters. And my biggest thought today is what makes focusing on leadership and focusing on our intentionality and confidence so important.
Yeah, so, when we talk about leadership and focus, I'm going to start by saying that I think focus is underestimated. And what I mean by that is, um, uh, look, you've probably heard so many quotes just like I have, but I always think back about Tony Robbins' quote about where focus goes, energy flows. And I really think that focus is underestimated because just like with many other quotes, we can tend to repeat them, but what does it really mean? And what it means for me is we don't experience life. We really experience what we focus on. And when working with business owners and coaches, I know your audience is coaches need to really think through on what they want to focus on to build their coaching business. And that's true leadership. You've got to lead yourself first before you can lead others. And that's what comes to mind for me when I think about, leadership and focus and how to build a sustainable coaching business.
So good. Like, I've heard this so many times, and I would love your perspective on it about what does it mean to self-lead. And the reason why I'm so curious about your perspective on this is I have to tell you, working with so many coaches, the thing I hear from them the most often is I need to be more disciplined. I need to have more consistency. I did. And it's often like this really negative point of view on self and their relationship with taking action on things. They know they're very distracted. They know that there are certain activities and actions that will make their business more productive. But again, like Carlos, it breaks my heart. It actually makes me very sad because, and not that anybody listening shouldn't tell me that that's how they authentically feel, but it just sounds like this constant beat up. So, does a coach activate self leadership in a way that is going to make them feel more like they're on track with discipline or make them feel more like they're on track with consistency? I'd love your take on like, well, what is self leadership and how do I activate it?
Yeah, I think such a great question and great perspective. I mean, we could talk for days on this probably, but due to the length of time that we have, the way that I would describe it is, my perspective is you've got to keep your promises to yourself. Now, that's a lot easier said than done, right? Because a lot of us don't even do that outside of our business or career that we do. Like we wonder, like, why are we stuck in a certain situation? Let's just call it life. We're stuck in life. We're not moving forward. We're not progressing. And it's because we're not keeping our promises to ourselves. And my take on that is, um, look, most coaches like myself, we had a previous job, previous career. We did something and then something happened in our life and we turned the switch and we became a coach, right? But when you think about it and you think about like when we went to work, when we were an employee and we were an employee, we had a job to do. And more than likely, I would say that most people they did their job, right? They had their tasks, they had their goals, they had everything that they had to do on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And so we got the work done despite how we felt. Maybe we didn't wake up, who wakes up in a great mood every morning? It's work. There's a discipline, there's a practice, there's a routine that's required to be able to get us in the right state of mind, right? The
Right.
right mindset to do anything that we want. But when we think about when we were an employee and we worked for someone else, if we didn't get the work done, we're probably not going to be there for a long period of time, right? They're going to get rid of us. And so it's kind of when you have your own coaching business and you're building that, you've got to have that same discipline to be able to keep your promises to yourself, to lead yourself regardless how you feel. Because there's a lot of times where I may not feel like, creating some content. You know, there are times where maybe something happens right before I get on a client call, but I have to show up. I have to show up. And I know that for me to show up, it's not for me, it's for them. It's like,
Yeah.
who needs me on my A game today? It's my client, it's that potential client, it's anybody that's around me. Am I going to live my core values of, living with intention and be able to inspire people and elevate people?
So good. Question: who needs me on my A game is one of my favorite high performance questions. Like, I'm a huge advocate for the high performance planner, and it's like in there every day, right? Who needs me on my A game? I talk to a lot of people that are really motivated by helping others and being, available to others. And there's like this, I've noticed a tipping point, right? Where we start getting into a people pleasing mode. And so a lot of coaches, when I talk to them about, and we dig a little deeper into what's the obstacle to your consistency, what's your clarity about what you're supposed to be consistent with? Often when we have that conversation, it's revealed it's like, I actually am not comfortable using the app to post to social media, for example. I don't know how the app works. And it's like, okay, well, how can you hold yourself to this, pseudo accountability, we'll call it? How can you hold yourself to this accountability of like, I'll post regularly to social media? That's a super, super common one. If you haven't given yourself the clarity and permission to just be like, you know what? I don't know how the interface works. Let me play with it. Let me have some time with it. And when you have the clarity about, for example, how to make a post, then it seems more reasonable, at least where I'm sitting, that you can hold yourself to this standard of consistently posting, because now you've overcome the obstacle of how do I do it? What are the steps to do it? I notice that a lot of coaches, they want to activate this discipline or this consistency because they want to be there for people who need them with their A game. But I notice they still sometimes stay stuck. So if you're talking to someone who's like, yes, I figured out who, yes, I figured out what my impact is, yes, I figured out what that best self is, and they're still not keeping promises to themselves, where do you like to explore as a coach to help them get past that?
I had to go through this myself. And a lot of that I found in my experiences, I was making it about myself. And when you think about the world that we live in, society, and specifically social media, when I got into coaching, I thought it was going to be very simple. I was coming out of being a business consultant, in a corporate setting, but I thought, okay, I'm going to create this coaching business. I'm going to have clients. I'm going to help them grow their business. End of story. Like, there's going to be some breakthroughs. And I thought that's how simple it was going to be. And, I hired my own coach. I had actually a couple of coaches at the very beginning, and I didn't know anything about like social media. And I had one coach, and he was a great coach. I learned a lot from him, but he loved Gary Vee. And if anybody doesn't know Gary Vee on social media, it's like, you got to post like all the time, like, 10, 20 times a day, whatever, the cadence would be. And I was overwhelmed myself, when I was getting into social media. And so, where coaches, I think they get stuck is, I think there's two parts to, when people think about coaching and my experience, it's like, um, we tend to do a lot of things to be a great coach, to be a great coach on how do we, what's the framework we take the client through? What are the questions? Like, how do we have a great relationship? How do we have that great interaction? But I think where the big miss for a lot of coaches is running running a coaching business as a real business, as a real business. And like you were talking a little bit ago about like, if you don't know how to do something, well, you've got to learn it. It's a new skill set. When many people, if you're employed in a corporate setting or wherever you're working, and you didn't know how to do something, then you became resourceful and you find a way to make it happen. And
Mm.
so with coaching, I think one of the big misses is it's not a hobby. If you really want a sustainable and successful coaching business, whatever that definition of success is for you, then you gotta, you've got to lead yourself, not make it about yourself, make it about your clients, but you also have to run it as a business. And you first start off by becoming a business operator first. You're wearing all the different hats. You're doing the social media. And then as you start to grow, if you choose to, then you can start to create a team. Might be one person, might be five people, might be 10 people, but then that's where you really start to scale. It's about being like really serious about creating a successful coaching business. You need those other elements. It's not just coaching and thinking about just that one-on-one conversation, with your clients.
You're making me think of like two things that really helped me to build a business to multiple six figures and sustain that, even with kids at home, even with my husband, being a work from home kind of dad, even with, the things that life brings us, right? Life is not without tragedy and struggle. Like that's all part of it. And so two things. One is have this phrase, and I call it the table stakes. So if you go to Las Vegas, there's tables that you can just sit down, and if you have a penny, you can play. But there's other tables that if you want the high risk, high reward, there's table stakes, and you've got to be willing to put on the table an amount to even be allowed to play. And so when I think about that concept, that idea, it's like if you're playing for pennies and nickels, there's just not a lot that's ever going to be asked of you. But guess what? The wins, the takes are going to also be pretty small, right? Because the table stakes are super low. And if you're wanting to play a much bigger game, then the table stakes are a little higher. So for me, I was like, you know what? Being an amazing coach and a good human with character is table stakes. That's to allow you to play. That doesn't say anything about whether you win or not. That's just to be allowed to sit at this table. One must have coaching skill. One must have personality, right? Like one must do these things in order to even play. And so that was like the first thing that came up for me as you were talking. I'm like, a lot of coaches do not realize that their certification gives them table stakes. It does not give them a guarantee of winning.
Right. Absolutely. Great. Yeah, great point, because I think it's so easy to get caught up into the coaching industry, and I'll just take it further to personal development. And it's like, we always feel like we need more certifications, more credentials, more strategies. And I know so many coaches that I've known for years, and they're doing certification after certification, and they're doing programs after program. And I really think that comes from lack of confidence, that they don't have that confidence within them. Are they good enough to, put themselves out there? And what it really comes down to I, again, early on, like, I didn't know anything about social media, and then I got involved in it. And social media is great. I'm not saying that it's not bad, but you've got to use it in the right way instead of like consume it, like we've always heard. To build a sustainable coaching business, the simple part about it is having that clear path of what you need to do. And for me, it's always been about what's the one thing that I consistently need to do to grow my coaching business, and that comes down to speaking with people all the time and having meaningful conversations with potential clients. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, there's a lot of other skill sets that are involved. There's marketing and innovation and a lot of these things, but that's what it comes down to, for me.
Yeah. And that's a second piece that I found so super, helpful. One was that table stakes idea. The other is let it be as simple as works, right? So let it be as simple as works. And you just said it. It's consistently connecting with people who benefit from being connected to a coach, right? And that's not everybody on the planet Earth. But if you just keep it very simple like that, it's like, what am I doing every day to make sure I'm meeting somebody new this week? Right. And maybe it's going to that networking event, or maybe it's, leveraging the conversations already on the calendar to ask the question, like, who else should I be speaking to? Right. Who else do you know that would benefit from having conversations like this with someone like me? And just like opening the door just through your networked conversations. The social media presence, I'm so curious, like for you, because coaches really put a lot of emphasis on this. They're like, oh, if I was just good at social media, then everything would be different, right? And I'm like, well, if that was true, look, the second principle apart from table stakes is if you want what everybody else has, then do what everybody else does. And the average of what a coach has, sadly, is very, minimal return on investment. So, what do you notice in yourself as you model? And I'm guessing you're modeling, like, please affirm or deny this. Do you model your behavior off of what average coaches do? You've got clients, you've got all this. Would you say that you model yourself off of your peers, or where are you pulling your ideas from?
I'm pulling my ideas from, I have two coaches right now. I personally have two coaches.
There it
And
is.
I mean, I it's like if you want to know how to get from point A to point B the fastest way, like get with somebody that's done it already, you know.
But
And
yeah,
social media, the word coach has just been really diluted, in my opinion, because everybody wants to be a coach. I was in corporate, still in my first company I worked for 18 years. And back then, I thought about becoming a coach. I, became aware of Tony Robbins, and I thought about, wow, one day I would just love to teach what he teaches and be on stage and everything. But back then, the internet wasn't the internet, and there was no social media. Like, where would I even start? Where would I go? So I just like
yeah,
I was just an autopilot. Hey, retail and corporate's going well, status quo, good pay, great benefits, and
yeah.
then moved on until something changed. But it's like, you've got to get with someone or the right community of people that are going to help you elevate your game. And I think
That's it.
people in general, it's this fear of not wanting to be seen, either starting small or feel like they're not good enough. Everyone's good enough to do something. You just have to make up your mind to do it and then take the action. And when you continuously take that action and you're consistent, that's where the confidence builds, that you're just like you're going to go all the time. You're not going to worry about getting on a call with someone or rejection of hearing a no. No, that's like you anticipate that, through experience, but that you have to ask. you have to make an offer. You got to take some action if you want to grow your business.
Carlos, what is the best way for people to follow you?
Follow me on Instagram. My handle is Carlos Villarreal Coaching. Follow me there. And as a matter of fact, message me. Let's do code word Amanda, and I will send to you. You don't have to sign up for an email or anything like that. To just message me on Instagram. And I will send you my PDF on the framework that I use because I'm very clear on what I need to do. And that's basically three steps that I follow. You're either coaching, you're connecting, or you're creating. And so if you want, send me a message on my Instagram and I'll be more than happy to send you that PDF for you to use.
I love it. I love it. Carlos, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Amanda. This has been great, and I wish we had, more time, but I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Absolutely. Yes, we'll have to just do it again sometime soon. And dear listener, I'm sure you haven't had enough time to get to know Carlos, so make sure you check out the show notes. You'll be able to get his Instagram link there as well as his website and other details. And we will be back with another episode very soon, but until then, make sure that you do what matters. If you haven't already, subscribe and grab the link to this episode and share it with 3 of your coach friends who need to hear that they can do this, that everybody has what it takes to do it. They just need to make a new decision with their self-leadership today. So go ahead and grab the link and share this with them. And finally, if you've been enjoying the show, make sure you stop by and leave us an honest review. It helps people to decide if they want to spend time with us, and we always greatly appreciate it. Until the next time that I see you, do what matters.